All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick, recording during the second quarter of Sunday Night Football. Vikings down 7-0, taking over at midfield, though. The defensive struggle that everyone predicted. See how it unfolds from here. We're going to talk about the AFC matchups, playoff matchups on Super Wild Card Weekend, as they are set in stone. We'll talk about the final Sunday of the regular season, and then a little Thunder Celtics. The first big real blockbuster of the NBA season, if we're not counting the kind of home and home Jokic-Wemby matchups that preceded it, which kind of felt like a joint kind of Dune Part 1, Dune Part 2 type of back-to-back, even though Dune Part 1 kind of sucked, which people don't talk about as much. Dune Part 2 is awesome. All right, let's talk about the Sunday slate. I got to say, there wasn't a lot to take away from these games. I thought the most interesting thing, though, how surprised were you about how difficult Tampa Bay made things for themselves against the great Spencer Rattler and company?
I guess I was surprised that their offense took a long time to get into gear. The advantages were so clear and obvious on paper, and they've been doing such a magnificent job of coordinating, and they were at full strength, and this game meant a lot. It kind of, you looked across at some of the other games where you had a clear mismatch and a team that needed to do something to punch their ticket, like the Ravens with the AFC North, the Broncos even, and they were just clinical, focused, took care of business early, got out of harm's way. And yeah, that the Bucs played with their food. And granted, it ended up not mattering as the Panthers did them a solid and took out the Falcons themselves. But yeah, that was a suspect performance. And I think in general, it's tough to really qualify much of what happened today in terms of winners and losers. I think in general, over the course of the weekend, you have to qualify the Bills as a bit of a winner. Didn't love the Zay Flowers injury for the Ravens. That could ultimately become consequential, particularly in that Bills-Ravens matchup, which looks like a pretty clear and obvious head-to-head. We're on a collision course, so to speak, for divisional weekend. Yeah, I mean, there was there was a lot of outcomes that I felt like were a little bit surprising, and then there were outcomes like our best bets, which were pretty dang solid. I watched a lot of Titans-Texans today. Didn't think I was going to be invested in that game, I felt like the Texans were playing they were playing like they were trying to send a message to their team, which is what they said they were going to do. And I know they pulled CJ Stroud after his his first drive touchdown, but there were still a lot of starters out there on the field, particularly on defense. They really gave it an honest effort, and certainly the Titans knew the assignment. It felt fitting that the consequential player, really the game that put that game away, was a Will Levis fumble return for a touchdown. It's kind of start the season, end the season with Will Levis doing something to end the game in a Titans loss. And the Titans are now your number one pick and likely to have their choice of any quarterback in the draft, which is exciting for that franchise, I suppose, to really get a kickstart in terms of a rebuild. Wild also that the Patriots and all the buzz around New England was they were excited to have the number one pick, and then they ultimately beat the Bills in a game that I had a lot of notes on, Jay. Because when we get to preseason next year, I'm gonna be betting Patriots because Joe Milton can ball. He's gonna be getting some meaningful reps in some of those preseason games, and he can play. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. And ultimately, Gerard Mayo losing his job is unfortunate for him, but I think was the right call for that franchise. And it's they lost a ton of equity in the draft, which is I think going to be one of the major takeaways from this weekend.
Yeah, Joe Milton, the truthiest Boston athlete since Paul Pierce himself. I agree with everything you said. That's the first I'm learning about the Will Levis fumble return touchdown. I didn't pay any attention whatsoever to that game. So sorry, Will, that happened to you. Again, quickly before we jump to the AFC wildcard matchups, some quick award stuff because I know that a lot of people listening will be interested. I think with a lot of these awards, you consume a lot of sentiments. You have your own ideas about what will happen based on precedents. And then it just you get to a somewhat subjective feel on how it is going to go. And when you're pricing things out, there are more objective elements that you can bake in. But a lot of it comes down to voter sentiment and being able to properly kind of take that and then translate it into pricing. And so my sense is, so I think there was kind of 3 awards that were still up for grabs coming into this weekend: MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and Comeback Player of the Year. Comeback player I can't really talk about because Sam Darnold is playing as we speak, and I think this game will shift that market somewhat. But MVP, my just sense is, based on everything, I just think Josh Allen's going to win. I think it is not 100%, but I will go into, and we'll get more kind of people declaring or alluding to who they voted for. But just from everything I've gathered, I think it's close enough that people, they just want to vote for Josh Allen, and they have enough of an out on the numbers and with team record to be able to vote for Josh Allen. It's my boy Sam Darnold throws an absolute dart to Justin Jefferson down the right sideline. So I think that Allen will win. And then Defensive Player of the Year, I think that TJ Watt is sunk in that market. I don't think he's 0%, but I don't think he's 2% either. If I had to price him, I would say he's somewhere, I think he's like 1% to win the award. I just think the only way that he wins is that if enough people made up their minds before the Bengals game. And even then, I don't think that Watt was in a good position going into that game. And the fact that he did not register a single stat in the game, despite, quietly, I think he played fine in the game. Thought he kind of created a bit of havoc. The strip sack that was taken back. Holding. If Surtain goes on to win Defensive Player of the Year, which I think he will, I will be buying a Cody Trice jersey because that was the Steeler the defensive holding to bring back the Watt strip sack, which had me absolutely panicked on a Saturday night alone in Stanford. But what's your read on Defensive Player of the Year before we move on to our?
I could picture that happen. Like when it was happening, I was like, oh no. This is like the signature play that gets repeated if the Steelers go on to win, and he may even this is a momentum play. Now he gets a couple more sacks, and like, oh goodness gracious! And then when I saw the laundry on the field, I jumped up off my couch and I did a little fist bump, and I was like, I shouldn't be cheering for penalties, but it matters. Like he just hasn't done enough on the counting stats, and I think there is something we should maybe pivot the tone of this a bit, which is like I don't hate TJ Watt. I'd love to see him. I'd love to watch him play. I'd love to see him make phenomenal plays. I just have never agreed with how much enthusiasm the market has had for him in this particular awards market, and so I'm against him in every way you can be. And I'm happy that here's this. It feels like this is home. It feels like Josh Allen is going to win though, and that's going to hurt because I have 0 Josh Allen and a lot of Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson just put together probably the most impressive single season a quarterback has ever done. And he's going to finish second in the MVP. It's amazing. But he should have, Josh Allen should have won last year. So what can I say? The general vibe on DPOY, I think, is Surtain. And I don't know 100% how these sort of things happen, but there were lots of pretty high level, high profile, like discussions about it that were pushed across the internet and pushed across relatively large media space. And so anyone who was really like, well, it's not Watt. I don't feel like Garrett has done enough because that defense is bad. I don't feel like I can go for Hendrickson. He's not even in the playoffs and his defense is bad. And, I think there's enough, there are enough people you can put ahead of Watt who are pass rushers. And you want to put somebody at the top of your ballot that is on a good defense, and it's probably going to be Surtain. So, yeah, unless something weird happens defensively in this game, if there's an absolutely, finite consequential play made by a defensive player named Kirby Joseph, or probably not, but maybe Andrew Van Ginkel, then there could be a weird steal from Surtain. But I think that's probably asking a lot. And yeah, to me at least, I think the refs are letting them play tonight. So defense is in the cards. Anyway, there's too many pass rushers you can put out of Watt, so it's over. And I think ultimately it's going to be wild that he is not going to have the counting stats. He's not going to have the statistical profile to support it. But at least three, maybe 4 strip sack fumbles were taken away by penalties this year for what? So like the ball bounces a little differently, and he's pretty clearly the winner. So yeah, it's a weird world.
Yeah, everything had to break right for Satan, and I don't think he's off the board. I don't think he's 100% home, but I do think he is pretty likely to win. I actually think the second most likely to win guy is now Hendrickson, just because I don't know how you vote any other edge rusher over Hendrickson when he's 3.5 sacks to clear of the field, leads the NFL in pressures, and had that loud of a performance on Saturday night. I don't know how many people are going to put Myles Garrett and TJ Watt ahead of Hendrickson, and I think the fact that he missed the playoffs and his defense is so bad is going to have people land on Surtain as the kind of just the guy that they feel best about, kind of tucking away the 1% possibility that Kirby Joseph has 2 picks in this game, because that could shake things up, but we'll see. All right, AFC wildcard matchups. A couple lines that I think people might have been a little bit surprised by. The fact that the Chargers are 2.5-point favorites in Houston. I mean, there was a point during the season where this would have been like Texans -5.5 or something at one point, and the Texans have collapsed so viciously that the Chargers are now 2.5-point favorites on the road. Do you think that is warranted?
Yeah, it's not. This is hold your nose and back the Texans, I think. But again, those of us who watched a lot of Texans-Titans game today, Jay, the Texans have they're entering the playoffs with the right foot forward. They've problem solved, issues fixed. I'm tongue in cheek here because obviously it was a Titans team that didn't look like they were intending to win, but they were rotating quarterbacks. But that said, the week 4 line for me would have been about what you're saying. It would have been like a 5-point favorite here for the Texans. Yeah. And I've downgraded them substantially. I'm not as low on them or as cold on them as the market is, surely. Texans made my week. So, I feel a little bit of, I'm trying not to be recency biasy here and say, yeah, like just back to the well here. Obviously 2.5 is not like a darling price. I don't think it's going to 3. I think this is probably moving back to say maybe like 1.5 here. But I also don't know that there's like a stampede of Texans money coming to really shape this one. So Texans for me against the Chargers, and it's a pretty soft look. But my fair price on this one is close to a pick.
Yeah, no, I'd lean Texans as well at price, as kind of disgusting as that is, given what they've really played like for, really the entire season. And they haven't played well at all. The result against the Bills now looks so, just so out of place in the context of the season. Particularly as Allen at one point in that game was like, I don't know what he was. He was like 7 for 22 or something ridiculous at one point. And then the Bills turned the corner shortly after. All right, Steelers, Ravens. Ravens, 8.5-point favorites. Probably no Zay Flowers, which makes it a touch more of an interesting matchup, but still probably not that compelling. Do you think there is any way that the Steelers offense is able to keep pace with the Ravens, or is this just, if this one is close, or if the Steelers pull the shock upset, it's just going to be purely because just kind of how football goes sometimes with fumble luck and bounces and special teams plays and just randomness, or is there actually any kind of sustainable path for the Steelers to generate offense here?
Outside, I don't think a normal game tilts this in favor of the Steelers any which way. It's going to have to be something weird like we've seen in Ravens Steelers games, like every Ravens receiver gets a case of the drops, or there's multiple fumbles that set the Steelers up with short fields, or Lamar Jackson gets hurt on the first series. Like these things happen. And so there's no sure things, particularly in, when you get to the playoffs in the NFL. But this is a fun and interesting market because if you remember on the 21st of December, and yes, that may feel like a year ago, but it was only a few weeks ago, Jay. This was a game that opened up as Ravens -5. It got bet aggressively in favor of the Ravens, including a decent amount of game day money that pushed it to close Ravens -7. Now, there's really been no change in personnel since then, except a loss of the wide receiver 1 for the Ravens. And now we're at 8.5. And actually, there was no Pickens in that game. If I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure he missed. Yep. So Pickens is back. Zay Flowers is gone, and now it's 8.5. And
Did you watch Pickens, though? Did you see Pickens?
I did. Yes, I did. He. I don't know why he was out there. Do you know why he was out there? I don't know.
Does he want to play football? Like,
I don't. I didn't understand it. I don't understand. He is one of the most entertaining and head scratching and wild and weird players. Like the fact that he gets under the skin of every single player who defends him. I can only imagine what he's saying out there. But it is fascinating to me that you have kind of reason to expect that there should be some support for the Steelers. You have reason to suspect there should be some downgrading of the Ravens, and yet here we are outside of the close of the 7 from very recently. And I think if I needed to explain it, it's just people understanding that this Ravens defense should be rated like they were heading into the playoffs last year. Like that's how good they're playing right now. And there's really no clear and obvious way that the Steelers win this with offense, in my opinion. So I think there is a pretty healthy correlated bet here if you want to take the points with the Steelers, which is probably the right side. I think you have to parlay it with the under. Right, like if the Steelers cover this number, it's because this defense shows up and plays the game of the season, and forces some turnovers or gets the key 4th down stops. Did you feel at all like there was a little bit of nerves in the performance from Lamar against the helpless Browns, like the 4th downs not being converted, and just in general a little bit of accuracy issues early in that game? Like, did it feel like there was a whiff of pressure?
I don't think so. I just think he was just slightly off. Like and a lot of plays were just slightly off. Like he missed one deep ball early, the jump pass to Derrick Henry, which, as stupid as it is, if he had completed that jump pass touchdown, I think it really would have materially helped his chances to an MVP, because that would have been one of the coolest plays of the season, and it would have been right at the start of the game. And that's when people were watching, because no one was really watching after he got halfway through the 3rd quarter. But no, I just think he was slightly off. I would be concerned, though, that when Zay Flowers went out, it just didn't feel like he had that much in the passing game, particularly with the Browns' pass defense is it's atrocious. If you can avoid the pass rush, if you can avoid Myles Garrett, which Lamar largely did, they just weren't really able to get that many explosive plays down the field. So I think that's a bit of a red flag. And I do think the Steelers, as kind of insipid as they've been for basically a month now, I do think that there is a high variance element to a team as insipid as them, because the one thing that their quarterback has had any modicum of success doing is throwing deep balls. And so that gives you a bit more variance if Russ is going to connect on these deep balls to George Pickens. And then also there is the chance that Highsmith, Herbig, Hayward, and Watt can just wreck the game on defense, and Lamar doesn't have receivers getting open because there's no Zay Flowers, and the Steelers' suspect corners, they can still cover enough, and then it's a kind of TJ Watt, Cameron Hayward type of game. So that would be the path, but not super interested in the idea that the Steelers can pull the upset. But yeah, at the number, I would be leaning. I would be leaning Steelers as well.
I think with the points. At the end of the day, I'm probably just going to be playing the under here. 46.5 is too high. There's too much familiarity here. The Steelers, it's worth noting that one of the things that's kind of, a lot of the attention is being shown on Russ. Like, he's not playing as well. Yeah, he's not playing that differently. Like, the biggest problem is that the offensive line is playing horribly. And in general, like, he is feeling the pressure, and he is not, creating out of structure. He's capitulating. And he, the fact that Trey Hendrickson is in the discussion for Defense Player of the Year is thank you to Russell Wilson. Like, he was walking into those sacks as opposed to, eluding them. So the Ravens could pitch a shutout here, and I don't think we would be surprised. The Ravens defense absolutely put them in a bottle last time out. The Ravens defense didn't allow a touchdown the first time these teams played. So if the Steelers get to double digits, I think I'd be good for them. And I'm a hair worried about the Ravens offensively, as you mentioned. Like, we've seen a lot of reps now for Henry. Zay Flowers being out definitely felt like it affected the passing game. Lamar Jackson still does have some playoff yips to prove otherwise, in my opinion. And I think under 46.5 is going to be one of my bigger plays of the weekend.
Okay, I like it. All right, Broncos-Bills, the last one. Bills are 7.5 point favorites. I think that this is the type of game where everyone all the public will be on Buffalo not wanting to only have 7.5 points of Bo Nix to keep up with Josh Allen. Do you think this closes higher than 7.5?
I do. I could see it sniff 10. There's going to be an absolute army that comes to support the Bills here because of they effectively had a bye this week. They are effectively at full strength. And the Broncos are starting a rookie quarterback, which comes with the expectation of a slow start. If the Broncos are down by multiple touchdowns in games, we have lots of evidence with Bo Nix. Like, if this is a 2-score game at any point in the second half, like, Bills are winning by margin. Like, I don't think you can expect that the Broncos have a comeback in them, even a backdoor type of comeback in them. And this isn't to disrespect the Broncos. Like, I can't handicap them. I was wrong on them. I think every week down the stretch, I lost. They beat me when I bet the Browns. They beat me when they dunked on me when I bet them against the Bengals, and then they got me again today. So I'm not handicapping the Broncos well at all right now, but I think this closes Bills minus 10.
Yeah, I agree. And look, Bo Nix was very good against the Chiefs. He was a lot better than I expected. I was kind of terrified of Nix needing a Broncos win in that matchup personally, but I mean, he was rock solid. Like, he didn't really make any mistakes. He was super accurate, and it wasn't all just dink and dunk stuff too. Like, he threw the ball well down the field. It's just that wasn't a real game of football. Like, that the Chiefs they just weren't there. They didn't have the personnel. They just weren't at the races. I mean, they lost 38-0. It just wasn't. It felt like a preseason game for the most part. And I think that going on the road to Buffalo certainly does feel like, remember that Bills-Patriots playoff game a couple of years ago, Mac Jones's debut in the playoffs, where the Bills won like 41-14 or whatever that was, just an absolute destruction. It kind of feels like this one might be on a similar path. It certainly doesn't feel like Bo Nix is going to go blow for blow with Josh Allen on the road. Okay.
You see that touchdown catch, though, in that game? That was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, that was cool.
Speaking of plays of the year.
Yeah. My man, Devon Bailey. Art Vandelay.
Touchdown of the year? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. All right, we're going to take a short break. When we are Aunt Vandelay snuck that one by you. All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk Celtics, Thunder, and some NBA futures.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
Okay, so today, as we're recording, Sunday, when you're listening, it was a potential finals preview between Celtics Thunder. This matchup has began to feel a little preordained with just how dominant both of these teams are, really. And obviously, it's not preordained, as the Celtics are effectively even money, a coin flip to win the East, and the Thunder are still solidly odds against at plus 160 to win the West. The Celtics are minus 105 at MGM. They are, of course, the two title favorites. You have some thoughts, Drew, about the matchup and perhaps about what it portends.
Yeah, let's talk about the market first. The Thunder closed today as 1-point favorites. If you weren't paying attention, there was an avalanche into the close of Celtics support at one point.
There often is.
Yeah,
Years
but
and years.
this was like, did somebody get announced out and I missed it? Because it was 2.5, and then bang, it was 1, and I was like, that's our key numbers. Like, it's not, this isn't. We're not talking like somebody betting it like they knew the final score or anything, but like that's a non-trivial move in a game where there's two teams that we have a pretty good idea of who they are. And yeah, I mean, this opened 2.5. It was kind of flirting with 2.5 too the whole time, and then closes 1. Watching the game, it felt like part of me wants to say like this game meant more to the Thunder. It was home for them. Like, they obviously feel like they had a little bit of they feel like they have more to prove. They haven't been to the finals. The Celtics are the champions, right? Like, there's clearly a distinct difference in terms of how you play a regular season game in the month of January when you are the champs versus you are the up and comer. The game also means more for seeding purposes, I suppose, for the Thunder. Like, they're materially better off in the West as the 1 seed. The Celtics 1, 2, or 3. Is that going to really change your number that much? Not really. Like, they're still going to be massive favorites against every other team that they would come up against, in my opinion. So, there's certainly that more was at stake for the Thunder, and they played with more of a chip on their shoulder. I came away from this game thinking SGA MVP is starting to feel like a fait accompli. I know that the Nuggets have certainly fixed their standings a hair, and they're not looking like a play-in team anymore. But that honestly has more to do with some of the other teams are playing right now and falling out of the picture. Most notably, the likes of the Suns and the T-Wolves, who are just playing very poorly right now. So I think in general, SGA is very, very live now to continue his progression in terms of fair price for MVP. But the real takeaways I want to kind of point to are there's something that's shaking my confidence a little bit that the Celtics are just going to be runaway back-to-back champs. And it is specifically the performance of Drew Holiday. He has regressed substantially from the peaks that we saw in the run that they had last season. He was masterfully important to the success the Celtics had last year. And he is one of the biggest steps backwards. And the fact that he played as much as he did during the Olympics, and he played as many minutes in as high intensity of a defensive role for that team through the playoffs last year. And yes, I know they didn't play very many competitive playoff series, but he still did. He had a heavy lift, and he has taken a big old step backwards. And I think that's concerning. Derek White's progression has stalled out. He is kind of the same player he was at his best last year. No new wrinkles in his game, nothing to continue his bump up. Jaylen Brown hasn't performed as well as we saw in the playoffs last year. He's not regressing, but he's not improving. The Porzingis, it's going to take him a while to be anywhere close to what he was at his best for the Celtics in the regular season last year. So I'm fine kind of holding my breath there. And you look across the Celtics roster and like who is really stepping up, who is really improving. It's Peyton Pritchard and Luke Cornett and Sam Hauser. Like, these guys aren't going to have key roles for them in the playoffs. I mean, Peyton Pritchard will, but not Hauser and Cornett. Like, they're going to need to be capable bench guys. Like, and so I'm worried a little bit about the fact that there's some topping out here in terms of improvement from a lot of the key guys and a huge step backwards from Drew Holiday. I think the fact that Pritchard had a particularly bad game obviously didn't help the Celtics because, his bench scoring role has been hugely important for them and sort of how they handle game state. The Holiday washed alarm bells are ringing loud. And if he is not able to, they really just should probably give him like a month to get right, because clearly something's wrong, and they're going to need him.
Yeah, I mean, Drew Holiday's 34 years old. He has played a ton of basketball, and he's been in the playoffs. This is now, it's like 5 years in a row he's been making playoff runs, and he does look a little bit slow. I think that the thing is that regular season wise, he's taken a step back. Pritchard has taken a huge step forward, but like, Peyton Pritchard's not going to be closing games for them in the playoffs. Right. And if he is, that's a massive problem. Like we saw today, he just couldn't really kind of live with the length of OKC. And I think we saw in the finals as well that like he's fine. Like he's a very good player, but he's not quite I think the level of player that team wants closing games. So I think the thing with the Celtics is, one, they're just doing this thing where now they're just like resting players every single game. And it just seems like there's no continuity. And I guess they will understand all of that stuff better than we do. And they'll have a gauge for their team and they'll know if they think that they need continuity to build up at some point in the second half of the season. But now it's just like, Jaylen Brown or Porzingis, like everyone is out. And I think the key for Boston is if they don't have like peak Porzingis in the finals, if this is the matchup, I don't think they're better than Oklahoma City. Like I think he is the thing that elevates them. And we kind of saw that in game 1 of the finals against Dallas. And then we never saw it again. And it was fine because the Celtics were just so dominant and Dallas weren't, at the level of this OKC team. But yeah, to me, the most interesting thing in the playoffs, outside of just like the health of everyone, is just what Oklahoma City's offense is going to look like in the playoffs, because it didn't look great against Dallas in that series where they had to deal with rim protection. And the team doesn't have I don't think they have amazing passing. They don't have amazing shooting. Shea is so good that he gives you an extremely high floor. But that will be interesting. I think the defense is just so good that it may not matter until a finals matchup against Boston, honestly. But that is one thing to watch. Like, how much faith do you have in Oklahoma City's offense producing at the kind of requisite level in a finals matchup against Boston?
It's going to come down to, do they get the path like the Nuggets got 2 years ago, or are they going to have to go to war? Because if it's a war, if this is, if there's a game 6 elimination game like they had against the Mavericks, if there's a game 7, if the game slows down and they're forced to produce in the half court, I'm a little bit no confidence right now. And maybe when Chet comes back, we'll get a different read. I still think Chet's probably still a ways away. I don't think that imminently he will be, traveling with the team, but maybe I'm wrong. And I think ultimately the half court offense scares me. And but again, the rest of the West is not stepping up to be a challenge right now. They might ultimately have a bit of a cakewalk. And if that's the case, then, they're probably going to the finals. But at that point, I'm probably going to be pretty heavy Boston, particularly if they're the road team and we're getting a price that's even-ish. Today's close. Let's assume that that's just where we're at for game 1. I'm going to be pretty heavy on Boston in that series.
Yeah, well, Chet and Caruso will come. The Celtics are at full strength today, and Chet and Caruso will come back, which will obviously materially affect things. The other thing is that, as maligned as he is, I have complete confidence that Joe Mazzulla is going to make the right decisions, rotation-wise and matchup-wise. I think he's just an excellent coach. The one time that we've seen Mark Daigneault in the playoffs, I thought he got put in a clown suit by Jason Kidd. Thought he was playing the wrong guys. I didn't understand why Lou Dort is just in the dunker spot all the time, which was allowing just Derek Lively just to roam off and just play paint protector. So I think that he still needs to, I'm sure that, probably learned from that. And he's an excellent coach in the regular season. I'm sure he's going to probably be fine, but that also needs to be determined. But
based on the NBA Cup head-to-head between the Mavs and the Thunder, I think he thought a lot about that matchup as well. Yeah. It was a very different approach. It looked like a different team.
Yes, indeed. Okay, we are done for today. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also, a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to Amazon.com/NBC Sports. From myself and Drew, we'll see you soon.